Hey SaaS, hey SaaS builders and growth leaders. Welcome back to Talking Sassy, the live show that brings you the latest strategies and insights from the world of B2B SaaS. I'm your host, Kareen Say, and I have a pretty special episode lined up for you today. You're joined by SaaS OGs, Tony and Joshua from the team at Inturact in a live AMA. Almost said VMA, AMA, where nothing's off the table. Well, nothing except for maybe Tony's hipster cafe habit, of course. Now, before we dive in, I have a bit of a personal update for y'all. This sadly shall be my last episode as host. I've decided to take a step back and spend much needed time with my family back in Malaysia, where I'm from. But I shall not be far away from the world of SaaS. And Talking Sassy will be in the very capable hands of the team at Inturact moving forward. I'll be sure to be dialing in alongside our audience from wherever I am. And now, let's talk about the show today. If this is your first time tuning in, you're in for a treat. Today's episode is jam-packed with the kind of foresight that you would need to navigate the ever-evolving SaaS landscape in 2024 and beyond. Some of the topics that we'll be covering: how AI and machine learning are shaping products, the most effective pricing models, strategies to acquire customers in a highly saturated market, to reduce churn, to boost retention. We'll also talk about the rise of API-enabled approaches and what investors are looking for in today's funding climate. So this show is going to be full of actionable advice. So get ready and let's dive in. Let me bring on Tony and Joshua to the studio. Good morning, guys. How are y'all?
Morning.
Morning to you.
Good morning. I know it's pretty early. I'm hoping that you have had AI for breakfast. So we're just going to dive in.
Let's do it. We'll dive in.
Yeah. I don't want to start with a heavy topic, but this is on everybody's minds today. AI, machine learning. I'd love to get your take. How are these technologies, how are these being integrated into SaaS products? What's the impact on the industry?
I was just talking with HubSpot yesterday, and they did a giant AI rollout during their inbound event a couple of weeks ago in Boston. And their big news is that every single step in marketing ops, rev ops, needs to have a AI agent informed by the data of your business. So they'll be rolling out, and I think this is a big deal because first, when HubSpot does things, the industry tends to follow. But it's also a really big stab at it's a big stake in saying, yeah, you're like, AI isn't this cute thing you could ask, you could give your ingredients of what you have in your refrigerator and get a recipe. Like, cool, you could do that. But when you feed it with traffic, not just traffic, but it knows, like with HubSpot purchasing Clearbit, they'll actually know what companies are visiting your website. So they can take website intent data, your current CRM, the posts and engagement on those types of content, and your sales scripts and all of this stuff now is feeding an intelligence that I think is going to be an unprecedented leap forward. And I don't think it's going to make our lives easier. I think it's going to improve the quality of what we do. And also, I think, raise the bar for the kinds of quality. Getting onto an AI chat and getting frustrated, I really think that's in the past now. We're going to get onto AI chats and actually get an informed answer. But that's my humble prediction.
Yeah. Tony, what are your thoughts on the rise of AI and how it's impacting our SaaS industry?
I think it's gonna, when I think of agents, what I think of right now is actually they will act as managers in many ways in terms of they don't optimize task flows, they optimize goal setting. So what you'll be able to do is the best way to think about this is if you find yourself, I find myself every day, and Joshua, you know this because I complained about it at one point. It was like I have too many software tools that I'm switching through all the time. Okay, what AI is actually going to do is it's going in my job is to synthesize what's going in, what's actually the conclusions or the decisions based on the 5 tools that I'm looking at across the board horizontally, right? AI is going to be the layer that is me that looks at all 5 of those tools and then knows you typed in a goal. Basically, you said, I want a goal based off these 5 different soft inputs. What should we do now? And so I really think what's going to happen is this middle management layer is going to slowly disappear over time is what I think is going to happen. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that a company like Telegram, I think, has 30 people or something. These are old numbers. Has 30 people and it's I don't know how many users, like hundreds of millions, right? And that's going to be way more common or feasible. It's not. There's going to be small groups, small teams that are running huge pieces of software. And when I say huge, I'm talking about just volume of people or processes. So that's what I think when I think of agents. That's what I think of. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I,
really interesting. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
yeah, I agree. I think that's fascinating. And in fact, just to kind of share a real life scenario, we've been kind of retooling our internal team a little bit into more of a matrix style organization, decentralizing it. And there's all these weird decision points, like waiting for a client approval, and then the client comes back and rejects the draft. Who makes the subtask? Is it the writer, the editor, the line manager, the account manager? Like, who's doing stuff anymore? Right? And like these are kind of managerial types of questions. And going into AI and saying, here's the scenario. What in a matrix style organization, what makes the most sense? Give me a few options, right? Like in the pros and cons of each. And all of a sudden, like, I'm getting information that would have taken maybe weeks to come up with a management level decision on a policy. So, like I would have had to have gone into the agency community and asked, what do you do? What do you do? Who does your subtasking? And here within seconds, I've got like this, I don't know, management agent or operational agent to kind of help inform that choice, which is really cool.
Yeah. I certainly see the power of AI in, optimizing workflows as you've just described, Joshua. And I've certainly seen the power of AI too when it comes to research. As you guys know, I'm really BFFs these days with Perplexity. I rarely go on Google now, but if I want to do research on my market, on my buyer personas, for example, Perplexity it is, right? I don't know if AI is going to take away my job. I think AI is just going to challenge me to be sharper. And if I had a massive team, it's all about being able to direct them with very, very, very clear-cut directions, objectives, setting up the right goals for them. So with AI, I feel like it's a very similar approach too. It's it's a tool that I have to double, triple my impact by not forcing me, but yeah, kind of motivating me to come up with the right prompts to set the right targets for AI to do its thing. So yeah, in the world of lead gen, demand gen, where I come from, especially, I'm seeing how AI, really has the opportunity to help us identify higher quality leads now. We're hearing a lot from the market. Hey, there's so much data, from various sources like social media, social listening, that's all the more prevalent these days, right? Web analytics, CRM systems. So just being able to scrape all these data, the insights, and help us to prioritize when leads are ready for us to engage with. I think that's really powerful as well. And of course, things like personalizing experiences and, analyzing customer interactions, their history with us, their preferences. So yeah, it's certainly, I think, rocking the boat in more ways than we can ever imagine. And, things are shifting tremendously, as we know, in the SaaS landscape.
I want to riff on that real quick on personalizing experiences. When we were really focused on user onboarding experiences, we're using the word personalized onboarding experience a lot, but it really came down to, identify 3 to 4 ICPs and then design 3 or 4 different onboarding experiences for each one, which is about as granular as you could have possibly gotten. But there are tools coming out now that can literally be your onboarding agent. We'll talk about an agent. Like it knows who not just your ICP, but like your level of technical proficiency and other tools that you might have access to, and all these other things that would go into the black box. And actually, every single onboarding experience could potentially be entirely different for that individual. That's a level of personalization that SaaS is going to be expected, I think, to deliver in the next 3 years, probably.
Absolutely. Personalization at scale, a bit of an irony, but it is very, very possible. So, Tony, did you have anything more to add?
I was agreeing with the personalization at scale. Yeah.
I'm going to jump around a little because, hey, it's an AMA, right? And nothing's off the table. So I want to talk a little bit about pricing models. That's another topic that's also kind of like up in the air for a lot of us. What are you seeing? What are some effective pricing models currently? And how do you determine the right strategy for your product?
Joshua?
Well, I was reading this article about how video streaming services are failing us. There was this big, because Netflix just canceled Chaos, which was this show about Greek gods, and Zeus was like hanging out in a tracksuit, and it was really popular. And it literally came out, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, and Netflix pulled the plug on it, and people were really pissed off. And like what the article was saying is, we just didn't have time to watch it. Like, we have 20 other shows, right? It doesn't mean it's not a good show. And a lot of shows got popular afterwards. Like, what was it? Well, I don't know. There, like, shows like would get canceled, and then a year later would become incredibly popular. So there's this weird thing that happens with streaming that I think the companies, the promise is get unlimited shows for $12 a month. But people are starting to get a little pissed off at the streaming companies. So what is going to happen with that? I just saw that Apple TV Plus just signed an agreement with Amazon Prime, and they'll be cross-pollinating.
Wow.
Their so like there's that is a kind of a consolidation in a way. So which one are you going to pay for, Prime or Apple? These are decisions we didn't have to make before. And then, a lot of content on Amazon is pay per view. So are we going to get to a place where the subscription model doesn't work anymore? Because I don't know about you, but maybe I watch like 1 or 2 shows at a time, and not during the week, and usually just for like, I'm not a binge watcher, and I don't got time for too much television. So is it really worth, buying? I mean, by the time you stack up all your streaming services, and if you're not borrowing from your big sister, her password, is it really worth it? So, we're and the cost of living goes up, right? So now we're making decisions about, can I cut my subscriptions and still have the benefit of watching a show whenever I want to? And the answer is yeah. It's called pay-per-view. Are we moving in that direction? I don't know, but I could see that potentially happening in B2C, maybe even in B2B.
Wow.
Let's see. When I think of pricing, the first thing I think of is it's the most underutilized growth lever in the whole game, period. You can actually create a knockoff product that's the exact same thing, but if you do a better pricing model where the customer, when I say better, I mean the customer, some segment of the market appreciates your pricing model better, like what Joshua was describing, you can basically create another business. And not only that, Netflix can't come after you because their whole unit economics are entirely built around the pricing model that they have. So they can't just switch the way they charge revenue and squash you, right? So I think what a lot of people, if you're not a category leader or you're not number 2 and you're trying to enter into a market, let's say you're trying to get into project management software, right? Like, oh my God, who needs why would there ever need to be another project management software? But if you can find a segment that appreciates your pricing model, you could just build the same thing as Notion or ClickUp or whatever the hell you want to, and you can win that game. The second thing is when it relates to AI, I think in one of the most poorly phrased in microeconomics terms, price discrimination, that you can actually use AI to price discriminate. And all that really means is people in different areas or with different, let's say, characteristics, meaning maybe one's a HubSpot user and one's not a HubSpot user. But the fact that they are a HubSpot user or not changes their willingness to pay. AI, I think, and I hope this would be interesting, would be able to do the price discrimination and change the packaging pricing based off those elements that they will be able to read based off, for example, Clearbit, right? Like if an AI model had access to Clearbit and it knew all the characteristics of your company, then it could change the pricing page for that group. Now, there's price discrimination is like it's tough because everyone always feels like you could position it as like it's a customized solution to you. But if they find out, it's a little bit like if you're at work, if you have a coworker or whatever, and for some reason you want to talk about money, and you have the same job, and you find out that person's making 50% more than you for the same job, you're like, that doesn't seem fair, right? And so it's a little bit, there's consequences to this price discrimination. But I think AI would, as like a tool to optimize pricing, would be very, very interesting. So yeah, when those things kind of heat up.
That'd be interesting. Did you ever see that video of like the social psychologist who was torturing her kids? I think she's a primate researcher, and she had her kids. One is an older son, and the other is a younger son. And she goes, "Here's your cookie," to the older son, breaks the other cookie in half, and gives it to the younger son. "You're not as big as your big brother. You get half a cookie." And the kid goes crazy.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Fairness is a big driver. It's pretty innate inside of us. I don't know how that might fly.
I don't know either. But when you shared that, Tony, I can't help but think about, when I travel, and when I'm out in, like a foreign country, out in, a night market, for example, like let's say Malaysia, I know for a fact that, tailored pricing, I'm not sure if it's pricing discrimination, let's call it tailored pricing, it's a thing, right? If you're walking down the street, if you're haggling in USD as opposed to local Malaysian ringgit, you get a different price point. Your haggling starts at a different price point.
VPNs for plane tickets. Like I saw a little bit of a difference when I changed my VPN for my trip to Prague. I changed it to Mexico just to see, and it was different, but not. It was like $10 different for like a $800 trip or something, so whatever. But it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
What is that like? So Corinne, let's just say you're going out into a market where you're supposed to haggle, and you get something for a price, and then let's say, I don't know, your mom gets something for a different price, and you get home and you're like, how'd you do? And you kind of paid more than mom did. Like, how does that feel?
Terrible. There is certainly price discrimination between my mom and me too, and I'm haggling because obviously my mom is savvier. She knows the language. Well, I know the language too, but she knows the nomenclature and how to vibe with local vendors. But if you're not culturally nuanced that way, they know that, okay, you're not quite, you're from here, but you're not quite from here, and it's easier to then assign you a different pricing model.
Haggling and negotiation in Western culture is not a thing. It's not a thing, but everywhere else it seems to be the standard. So yeah,
exactly, because it's not a thing. It's easier to give you a different price point.
Yeah.
See that? So
and I tend to agree with him. Like, hey, this world is here to like make you offers, and unless you're willing to counter offer, like like it's on you. Yeah,
everything is negotiable.
Yeah.
That's my principle. I also heard, I think it's from Joshua, pricing, or maybe Tony, pricing as a competitive advantage, it sounds like, right? How you could maybe set it up so that companies like Netflix, similar service, let's say you're competing with Netflix, but if your pricing is differentiated, Netflix can just turn around its model and take your breakfast away from you. I think that's certainly, that sounds very valid. I also say that, maybe, and in response to Joshua's point, I think maybe I'm okay paying for a subscription service if there's differentiation around, the customer experience, let's say, and pricing reflects that, right? Because I think by the end of the day, I'm fine paying a monthly for, a series of Netflix movies. But, if I run into issues, I want to know that I'm being taken care of in real time. That's goal to me, right? I don't want to get stalled and have to wait, 24 hours, 36 hours before my episode comes back on. So, yeah. All right. I'm going to switch gear a little. There's so many questions I want to ask you guys, and we don't have a lot of time. I want to talk about strategies for acquiring customers. That's another hot topic. It's a saturated market. We've heard from our clients, how do we get leads? How do we grow customers? What's shifting? What's top of mind for you?
I've been reading, I follow Peter Caputa. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right. He's the CEO of DataBox. And I think he used to work at HubSpot. Yeah. So, he's kind of taking a strong stance against what HubSpot used to promote a lot, which was inbound lead gen, right? Inbound. And for SEO purposes, like it was, the promise was, if you write good authoritative blog posts, you will get traffic, and that traffic will convert, and then you have leads for your sales team. And now it's the promise, but that is getting the results of that kind of work are less and less predictable, I should say. And he's kind of coming out and saying, it's good to write the blog posts, but expect less SEO benefit and actually expect more thought leadership benefit. Like, when you're writing, write descriptively, and sort of more towards the bottom of the funnel, more in a branding kind of way, which is interesting. How do you stand out from the hundreds of cold emails you're getting in your inbox these days? And we were working with Tommy Walker when we up-leveled our writing team, and we got this amazing training from Tommy. And one of the things he said to me on our first call was, "What was the last blog post you've read? Go, like, tell me, what was the blog called?" I couldn't remember. We don't have that kind of loyalty, and if you can build it, and someone says, "Oh, I read the Inturact blog," that's worth way more than 1,000 visits of random people at a 50% bounce rate. So I think it's definitely moving, and it's interesting to see where it's going to go and whose prediction is going to come true.
Yeah, so many things are shifting. Tony, I wonder what you have.
Top of mind for me right now is the idea around how do you build word of mouth or referrals. I think that's a really underutilized lever. And what do I specifically mean by that in terms of not like, let's think about there's software that is must be Slack, for example. You got to have some kind of referral process for Slack to work, right? That's like in the product. Fair enough. Yeah, you got to get that done. Basically, businesses that have kind of the communication like network effects, it's table stakes. But what's been top of mind to me is how do you get, let's say you're just, you're like a project management tool, once again, like Asana or ClickUp or whatever. How do you drive word of mouth in a way that is like very inexpensive, but also effective? And I think where I think most people miss the mark here, in my opinion, is they build communities for the wrong reasons. I think that's the way that they try to drive word of mouth. And I think when you're building the community, you have to basically come at it from, if it's self-serving at all, right? Almost at all, people sniff that out.
Yeah.
And I think what has to happen is you're just facilitating, and along the way, during conversations, you bring up what you do, right? And then that helps create kind of more an authentic community rather than a kind of purpose-built, self-serving community. And so that's where I think referrals and word of mouth can really improve. I know when I've done it both ways, I've created meetups where it was purely self-serving and I was basically up there pitching. Didn't go nearly as well as where I was like having everyone else pitch. And along the way, whoever happened to be pitching that day would be talking to me and inevitably say, "Hey, what do you do?" And then I'd give my little pitch, right? But then they would do word of mouth for me as well. But I never really. It wasn't like it wasn't like a topic in the community, basically, where I was pitching. So that's what I've been thinking a lot about. The other thing is how, to Joshua's point, how do you stand out in the email, cold email world? I do think, especially when you're starting a business, you kind of have to elbow your way. Like if I think about SEO, I think of it as a passive tactic where you're kind of sitting back and you're waiting. You're creating content and you're kind of waiting for stuff to come to you. I think logically that should work, right? You look, there's keyword intent, all these other things. But I think to really start spinning up something new, you have to go make a kind of a ruckus somehow and kind of elbow your way into the market, be more intrusive somehow than just, but it changes. Like that's at the beginning. It changes over time, but that's the thinking about is how to make a ruckus and be kind of noticed when you're first starting out, especially.
Yeah, certainly very insightful. I think a lot of what I'm hearing all kind of like, to me, I'm excited about this topic too, because it by the end of the day, it just boils down to the fact that we need to double down on our branding, right? It sounds ironic because earlier on I was all about the rise of AI, transforming our lives in every aspect. But because it's so AI oriented and our lives are getting so automated, I think now is all the more important when we should really be strengthening our brand. How we actually deliver our customer experience, for example, all speaks to the brand, our values. And what I've read recently, it's all about leaning into, who you are as a company and the people that you have on your team, right? Your internal folks, your external folks, all right? Tony, to your point earlier, it's not so much about our self-serving goals, but it's all about, serving others. How do we as a company, deliver the extra value to a customer? How do we build something that's special and remarkable that people want to be a part of? So I've also seen, study after study saying, the right brand experiences, can truly shorten sales cycle. So to answer that question, some effective, strategies to acquire customers, just make it easy for people to work with you, make it easy for people to want to partner up with you, right? So for example, when it comes to AI, instead of automating everything, maybe think about centralizing people in some of these critical touch points where they matter with your customers, with your clients. So those are some things that come to mind, and what is it that drives word of mouth and referrals? Positive word of mouth, obviously.
Yeah.
It's really that brand reputation that you have, right? So, and then that personalization as well. That's another, thing to, hey, personalization not for AI's sake, right? Because we can, but because this is how you're going to also make someone feel truly special and heard and seen, and then ultimately want to do business with you.
It makes me think, those things that don't scale, like you talk about scale and everyone tries to scale. But then we say, okay, what doesn't scale? Maybe do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, I've been seeing a lot of hand-drawn LinkedIn posts recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody doodling their ideas and then taking a picture of it, and that becomes their LinkedIn post. And does that scale? No. Is it interesting and personal and human? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I love it. Yeah.
That kind of stuff, I think, is gonna really stand out a lot more. The emotional effort you put into things.
Exactly. That authentic, organic, experience that people have with you. We don't want pretty, pictures generated by AI anymore, right? Like, but I think we're all craving for that connection. So,
yeah.
I actually, piggybacking on that idea, I actually think what's going to happen is AI is going to quote unquote take over the world for a little while. And then the pendulum's going to swing back around. And I think in-person experiences, because you're at some point, there's a business opportunity and people are already doing this. I mean, AI enables fraud and fakeness on a scale that's will never have been seen before, ever.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's opportunities. I know there's some AI shops or software that is, how fraud detection type stuff. Right. So there's a business opportunity, but almost like, and we were talking about social media earlier, when you can't believe anything that you see online anymore, you're going to have to, in my opinion, what's going to happen are people are going to go back into the real world. The timeline on this, I think maybe 5-10 years or something like that, where everyone the pendulum swings back the other way. But I think that's going to be the nature is everyone's going to be all about this scale and AI, and then swings back the other way, wants to do things in person. But that might be me just being old, getting older and hopeful.
No, you're not. No, you're not being old. I think there's a valid case there. Dating apps, for example, I think people are sick of swiping, and people are craving in-person meetings instead.
That's a good example.
Right?
Yeah.
Little way of meeting people. Even meeting at a bar doesn't sound so bad anymore compared to swiping on an app. So yeah.
I have a buddy. He's on dating apps. Recently divorced, and he wrote like an instruction manual on how to talk to him. And like, don't send me naked pictures. Real people don't do that. Oops. Like, don't do this.
Exactly. Real people
do this. Don't do this. Like, I want real. Like, it was basically like 5 steps to a real connection. And if you're not willing to do that, he's not interested at all. He's old enough to, to be selective about who he spends his time with.
The only counterpoint I have to that is I was working at an AR and VR shop for a little while, and what was interesting to me is your brain, I haven't looked at the research in a long time. Okay, so caveat that. But my understanding was your brain, if the experience is quote unquote real enough, your brain can't tell the difference if the things that happen in your brain are the same in the digital world as in the real world, right? So that's the only counter argument I have is like, maybe people don't care that it's a fake world, right? Like they're getting the same signals in the brain, so it doesn't matter. So they won't actually swing back into the real world. That's the only counterpoint I can find to it. But I'm still sticking, I'm crossing my fingers because I have some business ideas around that as well down the line. So anyway,
I've actually, for sure. I've actually experienced that a little bit. Squirrel suits.
Yeah.
For free diving. I did one of those like VR free diving experiences where they strap you to the ceiling and blow a fan at you.
Yeah.
No, my brain freaked out and went into shock. I took the VR goggles off. My feet are dangling. They pulled me back.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, I lost all the blood to my limbs, and I had to have a sugar packet. Was I in any real danger? No.
No.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
See.
All right. Let's switch gear. This is something that I'm very eager to get your take on. Investors. What are some things that investors are looking for in this current climate? Are they even investing anymore? What are your thoughts, Joshua?
I think they are. I think it's going to be like good leadership. I think that's what investors are looking for. It's less about cookie cutter. Let me just throw my blueprint on here and hope for the best. I think investors are looking for strong leaders to either put in place or to purchase with their acquisition. Which is different from before. Like, when we were looking for businesses to buy, we didn't really consider leadership, and maybe that was stupid. But this was 3 or 4 years ago, and we just said, we know how to grow a business, especially a B2B SaaS business. We just put on our blueprint, pull the right levers, push the right buttons, and off we go. And I can tell you from our experience that works to an extent, but I think these days it's just it's too easy to enter the SaaS market now, much easier now than it was 4 years ago. And so you just need really creative people who can get their team to work hard and follow strategy, like good communicators. I think that's what investors are looking for when they buy.
I love hearing that it still boils down to having quality human values, not some fancy AI capability.
I think so.
Yeah. Tony, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the competition for capital is going up because you have to compete. Investors are looking at they're looking at bonds even now, where because of interest rates, and so you're competing against bonds. Where if you're a software company, whereas before for 20, 15 years or whatever, you were never in competition with bonds. The return wasn't there. So that's the first thing, is just fundamentally the business environment is more competitive for capital. So what does that mean? It means the unit economics of your business, specifically for us in the SaaS world, lifetime value to CAC ratios are uber important. And if they're not there, you can expect to be probably diluted, less favorable terms for you because it's a higher risk. If I was to say like what they're probably looking for, I haven't had these conversations in a while, but for a lot of the companies that we work with, I would really encourage people to get their churn dialed in. I really, before trying to get capital. I mean, just over index on that. And once you get that dialed in, your unit economics are going to be really, really good. And then it changes the power dynamic a little bit when when you're one of the games in town with good unit economics. Then that kind of where I was talking about before, they're thinking about, okay, should I invest in stocks? Should I invest in bonds? Or should I invest in this software company? Now you're maybe the only one of the few games in town who have really good unit economics because of your good retention. Now you're like in the game for more favorable terms relative to stocks or debt. So that's what I'm thinking about what investors want to see with a lot of the companies that we work with. That's what I would say. Retention, get retention dialed in, get those unit economics dialed in, then try to raise money.
Yeah. Incidentally, I do have a question around that. What are some things that people can do to get their unit economics dialed in? How do they reduce churn and boost their retention?
Make a good product. I mean, here's the deal.
There's more to that, right? Like, I think we're seeing a lot of people struggling with churn.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Like, churn's like a fundamental core value problem. It's like if you have a churn problem, your products, there's some chance that it's marketing. Marketing might be making promises that you can't fulfill on. That might be true. But most of the time, what's happening is the product just isn't well, and you got to take into consideration your business model and your pricing, right? So, like, how often are they using this tool? Does it make sense to use a subscription, the monetization model? I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into this, but fundamentally, what's happening with churn is you're not really going to be able to save churn via like some like email campaigns. You'll get like something on the margins, right? You'll be able to play with it on the margins. Having a good customer success program, which we can help you do, like to identify risks and have a playbook to save them. Good idea. The problem is that they are already risks to be identified. That's the problem. You got to get in front of that. You're already reacting and you're playing from behind. So what you usually have to do is go back to the drawing board on your fundamental assumption of what they value, like, and then innovate from there is usually what happens. Now, if you have a pretty decent, we like to say, we look at 12-week retention curves and things like that. Like if it's, flattens, but it's relatively low, there's a lot of opportunity to do kind of, let's say, I hate the word, but like growth hacks or something to get that line to move up on the retention curve. But if it's going to 0, you can't really hack your way into, you can't do growth tactics into saving that most of the time. You got to go back to the fundamental assumptions and do some innovation on the core value of your product. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, those are all great points. Like have a good product. If your retention curve is going to 0, you're not really solving a problem, a real problem in a real way.
Yeah.
I think there's also an opportunity to leverage behavioral economics in a way by providing really good support and humanizing your brand. By way of example, we run on ClickUp, and it's not perfect. I found a bug, and it was handled extremely professionally. My query was taken seriously. They didn't just assume user error, which, I mean, if you're in support, 99% is user error. And they were able to quickly ascertain and reproduce the bug, and said so, and showed me exactly what the next steps were, and were transparent about their bug squishing process, and tried to find a workaround and didn't, and apologized. And it was a legit interaction between two humans. And at the same time, they're on. So I had a good support experience, even though there was a problem involved.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's really funny posts coming out of ClickUp right now. From on their, if you go to their LinkedIn feed, it's hilarious. Like they're doing this video campaign of their executives writing songs to like new lyrics to like classic rock tunes. And it's hilarious. And you're like, okay, these are real people. And there's a cognitive bias here. Like you're like, if I quit ClickUp, I'm hurting somebody's feeling, like it's not just, it's a kind of a breakup, and it's not just a cancellation. Somebody's feelings are going to get hurt. And plus all the time I've spent like invested in getting the processes up and running. So I think there's opportunities there again where branding can come into play, and just really good processes, really human oriented processes and good branding can have a significant impact on that retention rate.
I love how this actually brings together all that we've just covered, right? There's no one thing that sits in silos, right? It's all serving one another. The brand experience serves, your customer, serves the way you drive your LTVs, reduce churn. Even product too. It's, it's not, I'm hearing, have a kick-ass product, but product is then supported by great customer service. You also want a product that's intuitive. So the communication that goes into helping people to adopt your product, that's critical too, right? Because I know you guys work really hard on, providing guidance and direction on how to activate users once they come into our clients' products, for example. And I also, more importantly, like just humanizing everything, we say B2B. I like to defer to H2H one day, maybe human to human marketing.
Yeah, that's good.
Growth, because it's so important. We do need that touch point. We do need that personal touch interaction at those key moments, right? So even actually not even outside of your product, even on LinkedIn, as you were just mentioning, ClickUp execs putting out videos, just to humanize their brand and their values a little bit more. That makes
sense. I'm gonna miss your cute like sayings, H to H, and what are some of the other ones that you come up with?
I don't know, but let's not start. I know I'm really enjoying just engaging with you on SaaS, on business, on marketing, all the things. But let's get back to the show. I do have one more question. Do you think we have time for one more, or do you guys want to do rapid fire questions?
Oh, no, not those again.
Not those again. Okay.
Let's do one more.
Let's do one more. All right. Joshua, we talked about verticalizing SaaS, markets. I think that's certainly something that's right in line with, double down on where you are good at, your focus, right? And yeah, I'd love to hear what are some of the most promising vertical SaaS markets today. What is it that makes them attractive, for entrepreneurs and maybe even like investors?
I think I don't mean this as a cop-out answer, but I think building a product that solves a problem you have is the best way to go about it, identifying a product. It's like I was talking with a friend in India yesterday, and he spent years building SEO off-page backlink processes, and he's really good at it. But he found that there's one step in the backlinking process that takes about 3 hours and really is annoying, which is finding where you want to put your anchor texts. It takes about 3 hours for a good SEO backlinker to identify the right page to ask for the backlink. It's a lot of work. And if you're doing 10 to 15 backlinks a month times 3 hours to try to find the right anchor text, and then you're only getting like a less than 50% response rate when you make a request. So let's say you're doubling that. It's a lot of work. And so he felt the real pain, and he knows that pain exists with other people who do SEO off-page backlinking. So he built a product that completely automates it. And I'm pretty confident he's going to do well, right?
Very cool.
So I think that's where great inventions come from, is from your own life.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a lot more value if he were to verticalize his solution, backlinks for specific industries, or is this more of a horizontal problem that that he would do well regardless? I'm curious. Yeah.
That's a great question. I don't know. What do you think, Tony?
Sounds horizontal to me. Because when I think of vertical, the best example that I've heard of is I forget. There's a CRM that's for healthcare. Okay, the difference between, in my opinion, most products that say for X industry, it's mostly bullshit marketing that they've just thrown on, like to quote unquote verticalize. And what do I mean by bullshit? I mean, like, it doesn't really matter whether you are in the healthcare space or you're marketing in the healthcare space or the real estate. You're just putting words that fundamentally the product's the same, and it would serve both markets. Now, I do think when I call it bullshit, what I mean by that is the product fundamentally isn't different. It's not a real vertical solution. Now, when it comes to marketing, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to do that, because when you saturate a market with your marketing message, you become the default choice. You're concentrating your marketing spend all in one quote unquote vertical. So those are all good things, right? But when it comes to like real vertical solutions, I like to think of the healthcare CRM versus just CRMs in general. And there's real differentiated needs, meaning AKA HIPAA. Okay. HIPAA doesn't allow you to, you can't, it's not like it's a deal breaker if you're not HIPAA qualified. And it's not exactly easy or cheap to become HIPAA qualified. So this CRM that escapes me the name right now, but some guy was working at, I think, Salesforce, noticed the problem, created his own healthcare CRM, and now he's the default answer. And HubSpot's not going to come after him. Salesforce isn't going to come after him. He's got it.
HubSpot just rolled out HIPAA compliance.
Well, okay, fair enough. The dude, he's the market leader in there. HubSpot can expand there, but he's probably got a relative market share of, if I had to guess, probably 5-10x So his return on invested capital should be way higher. So fine, HubSpot wants to play in there. Great. I wouldn't be that worried if I was him, to be honest with you. That's what I think. Real differentiated needs, not just marketing.
Yeah.
That said, do go after a little bit of a segment and add the kind of qualifier for this industry, even especially when you're trying to get a toehold, and you're just trying to get like your name out there at the beginning. It's a pretty good idea. For example, project management software for agencies. Probably the product's pretty similar, whether you're an agency or not, probably.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a good idea to probably at the beginning do something like that.
I think that's a really good point. Like the decision to verticalize or not, I think has a lot to do with your resources and your stage. If I remember correctly, when Monday.com came out, they were very verticalized. They solved one very specific problem, and I think it was for legal. I think it was.
That's a good.
I could be wrong here, but it was just basically legal document requesting.
Yeah.
Right, and then they were like, we could do legal projects, and then we could do design projects, and then as they got more money and more market share, they were able to become horizontal, which is what they are now. So I think that's well thought out. I think when you have limited resources, like what April Dunford talks about, is big fish, small pond is probably your go-to choice.
Yeah. I think that's also what beachhead strategy is about, right? Finding that one beach, focus on it, get good at it, and then move on to the next beach. That's how I read it. I don't know if you guys know, but it's a term that was used like in World War II or something, when they would be attacking a certain section of the beach, right? And then done with that, move on, which war terms, not my thing, but I thought it was just interesting, like where would a term like that come from, in the world of SaaS? So there you go. Yeah. We have 3 minutes left, and I hate to do this, but I feel like maybe it's time to wrap up.
Okay.
Maybe with one rapid fire question.
Okay.
Because this is the show, right? All right, guys, what's your guilty pleasure today?
Today. I'll say I put peanut butter and chocolate in my oatmeal. So kind of ridiculous.
That's very logic.
Yeah, that does sound pretty good. Mine is making a ham sandwich that's covered in cheese sauce. Like that was pretty good. And then frying an egg and putting it on top. It was pretty, I went back to the well the next day on that. And it was pretty good.
Great. All right. As for me, just because we just got out of Hurricane Milton, I would say just studying hurricanes a little bit more. Thankfully, where I am, Miami, wasn't much rain. Sun is out, but I don't know what's going on. Up north in Central, I'm sure impact there is different. Yeah. So with that, I've truly enjoyed my AMA with you. I hope you have too, and I hope anyone who's tuning in found a lot of value in this. I barely scratched the surface with you. I know you have a lot more to share there. I just want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your thoughts and your perspectives on these critical issues. So
cool.
For the rest of you, if you enjoyed Talking Sassy, as always, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel now as well. It's really the best way to catch future episodes. Joshua, Talking Sassy is in your hands. So, we'll keep producing sassier shows over time. Thank you.
Sounds good, Karine. Thank you so much for being our host this past month and a half. It was really nice to kick the show off with you and bring your energy to it.
Thank you.
Bye, Karine.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.